Hi there! So today we are doing a very exciting episode. This is Season 2, Episode 8, A Matter of Honor, and we finally get some Klingons. So I really like Klingons. I think that they're awesome in the Star Trek universe. They're like one of my favorite species. And so far in The Next Generation we haven't had a lot of interaction. We had Heart of Glory in the first season where Worf interacted with a couple rogue Klingons that were brought on board. And that really focused on their warlike nature and how they couldn't really find a place for themselves during peacetime. And that was a good exploration. I think that was a decent episode. But this time, we actually get to see an entire Klingon crew and how they interact with each other. So what's going on is there's a Starfleet officer exchange program happening. So the Enterprise gets 4 officers coming on board. One of them is a Benzite named Mindon, and he becomes a major character in this episode. And Riker, Picard recommends that he gets transferred to this Klingon cruiser as the first officer. So Riker's like, yes, I'm up for a challenge. No one's ever done it before. I'm William T. Riker, and I want to be first and awesome. So he goes over to that Klingon cruiser, and the Benzite officer, while they're making the exchange, notices some sort of microbacterial biological colony on the neck of the Klingon ship, but he doesn't say anything about it. He just starts investigating. Soon, as Riker is integrating with the crew, they discover the colony on their ship, and the Enterprise notices that they have a similar infection on their ship. So a lot of the episode is the Benzite trying to fit in with the Enterprise crew and Riker trying to fit in with the Klingon crew, and different shenanigans happen. And eventually, when the Klingon cruiser discovers the hole in their hull that's being formed, they think that the Enterprise attacked them. So they cloak, they start planning to attack the Enterprise. So meanwhile, the Enterprise is going to intercept the Klingon ship to warn them about this infection on their hull. And there's this huge confrontation where the Klingon captain is like, Riker, you swore an oath to serve me. You need to help me attack your ship. And Riker's like, yeah, okay, I'm prepared to die as one of you, because he's Riker. So he has his emergency transponder that Worf gave him, and he puts it on the captain, and the Enterprise beams the Klingon captain aboard, so Riker gets to take over the Klingon ship, and he opens up the view screen, he hails the Enterprise, and he's like, this is Captain William T. Riker of the Klingon cruiser Pah. Drop your shields and surrender. And Picard's like, yeah, okay, good, this ended well. So that's a brief overview. Like I said, I really like this episode. I think that the exploration of Klingon culture is really great because up to this point, we pretty much just have Worf. And Worf is stoic. And that's brought up a lot of times. Like, Worf is very stoic for a Klingon. And Riker makes this comment as they're having dinner aboard the Klingon ship. He's like, I could never imagine Klingons laughing. Because they're like telling jokes and making fun of him. And he's like, ribald humor and fitting in with the crew as they eat dinner. And the Klingons say there's probably a lot that you don't know about us. And they go on to talk about honor and how their fathers are dead and how a Klingon living a long time is a symbol of shame because they have to wait for a natural death instead of dying. And they kind of have this neat exchange of information where one of the officers' fathers is still alive because he was captured by Romulans and escaped, and he was too old to fight anymore. And he's like, I don't see him. I don't know how, to get past that Klingon mentality that he would be better off dead. And Riker goes, yesterday I did not know how to eat gach, and he eats some live gach. And it's kind of like showing that their minds can be opened, both the Klingon and the Federation. So that's something that I really liked. It's showing Klingon culture more. It's showing the dynamics between the crew, There's some good scenes with Riker trying to establish dominance on the ship. And one of the Klingons is played by the guy who plays Shao Kahn in Mortal Kombat Annihilation, who I love, and he's super recognizable because he has a giant jaw and he has this really distinctive way of talking. So he showed up, I was like, that's Shao Kahn. So I looked it up, and he's in a couple episodes of DS9, he's in Generations, he's in TNG, so he actually has like a Star Trek career. And I'm sure that I noticed that before in individual episodes, I just never put it all together. And so that guy becomes Riker's buddy on the ship. He's like the second officer. He's a lieutenant. And they have some good interactions. So the other thing that's going on while Riker is on the ship is this Binsite, Mindon. And he doesn't really know how to function aboard a Federation ship because he's used to being on Binsite ships. And he is a little bit too eager and outgoing. Like, he addresses the captain when he shouldn't. He's making comments on the bridge when he shouldn't. And it's a really interesting portrayal of how lower level officers are treated on the Enterprise, because we see all of the main command crew and we see how they interact, but we don't really get to delve into the lives of the background officers. And it's interesting because he talks to the captain, but Captain Picard is just baffled that this guy is talking to him. And it's like, does Picard really not interact with the junior officers on the ship? It seems weird that there's this. I know that there's a command structure, and I know that, you know, if he has concerns, he should bring it up the command structure instead of taking it directly to Captain Picard. But Picard's just confused that this ensign's even talking to him. And it's like, is that protocol in Starfleet? I don't know what the military's like, but heck, on Earth, I don't know what it's like being in the military, so I don't know if that's how it is. But I just kind of found that interesting that you have all these ensigns and lieutenants who really have no idea what's going on. They're maybe on the bridge, but they're not allowed to comment on anything. They're just doing their work at their stations. And the people who aren't on the bridge, like, they don't really have any contact with the command officers, and they don't really know what's going on most of the time. And there's that new Star Trek series coming up, Lower Decks, where it's a comedic cartoon, but I think it's supposed to be about the junior officers, and that might be kind of interesting to see. So that's something that I found interesting. Mindon, the Binsite, we're not supposed to really sympathize with him at the beginning because he's shown as being a little bit cocky and arrogant and kind of overextending his reach and his position. And then as the episode goes on, he kind of learns more about Starfleet protocols. He learns a little bit of humility. Something that I found good was he notices the bacterial colony that's eating through the Klingon Warboard's hull, but he doesn't say anything about it because on his ship the procedure is to find a solution and figure out what the problem is before you report it. And Picard's like, yeah, that's not our protocol, and he kind of gets in trouble for it. But Picard then puts him in charge of figuring out what the problem is and finding a solution. And I found that was like a good leadership teaching moment where it's like he made a mistake by not reporting it, but he's been given a chance to rectify that mistake and to lead the effort in finding a solution. And I thought that was kind of cool because it's not a big deal, and I don't know if it was supposed to be a big deal, but I thought that was like a good leadership moment for Picard. Instead of taking the project away from him because he made a mistake and not reporting it, he gives him the project and he says, okay, figure it out. You've found the problem, you figure out a solution. And I think that's good. I have my notes here for the episode. And those are the two main things going on. I like that the kind of subplot with the Enterprise really ties directly into the main plot with Riker being on board the Klingon ship. There's not some kind of weird subplot going on that doesn't have anything to do with the main plot. So yeah, overall, I think it's a solid episode. I love that they have the Klingons in it. I love that how they're portraying the Klingons in this episode as being fully fleshed out people. They really care about honor. They really, they have their weird chain of command. They have their quirks, but they're still people. And Riker views them with respect. And Riker is excited for this opportunity to get to know them. One thing that's kind of dumb is the fact that the captain of the Klingon ship chose to attack the Enterprise for almost no reason. That's kind of contrived, but I think that the rest of the episode is good enough that it works. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts. There are more Klingon episodes coming up in Season 3. I think Sins of the Father is in Season 3, where Worf meets his brother. So that's a solid episode. So the Klingon-centric episodes, when you get into the Klingon Civil War and the Romulans and the Duras sisters, like, Klingon episodes in TNG are really good. Like, I really enjoy them. So I'm looking forward for more of those.